Welcome to Make a Path Presents. My name's Ronnie Hayes, and this is an Afterthoughts discussion about The Walking Dead, Season 6, Episode 15, called East. Jumping right into this, I want to give this episode a low, great rating. Now, jumping right into this with Carol. Now, it's funny because at the end of the last episode, Carol leaving kind of bothered me, and I got kind of hate for saying that. And then after this episode, I actually see a lot of Carol fans giving hate towards Carol's newfound storyline. And it's funny because after this episode, I'm starting to actually like it. So it feels like everyone's playing opposites of whatever I do. I know that's not the case, but it feels like that. Just teasing anyway. I do still disagree with Carol leaving, don't get me wrong. And it's not because I don't understand what conflict she's going through. It's because I don't understand what she's thinking, because it's the same outside of the walls. Even this episode proves that. She had to kill. Now, it was cool because in the beginning of the episode, she did sew a gun in her coat. So that shows us intent. She knew she was going to have to kill, so she wore an extra big coat. She sewed areas for guns to be in her sleeves so they can rest there. She can grab them easy. And if anything happens, she puts up her arms. I'm, harmless and whatever. And then she just lets them have it. Shoots them through the coat, which is absolutely awesome. Now, there is something that I didn't look into here, but there's smokes by this guy's leg. Now, I'm going to try to get the image, but in the previous episode when she was talking to Daryl by the motorcycle, she leaves the same exact smokes by his leg. Now, she didn't leave them by the other guy, I don't think, or maybe they were hers because they did have a scuffle and they fell down because she shot the guy and he probably stabbed her. But it's interesting, those smokes are there by his leg, who's dead, and in the previous episode they were by Daryl's leg, who was talking to her. So it's like, was that foreshadowing for something? I might have missed it. If it is, I'm missing it, is what I'm saying. Anyway, so it's a mystery what happened to Carol. Now, I know a lot of people are asking me if the guy who's following Carol is Wade from episode 6, and I don't believe so because of one thing. Now, here's the two boots. You tell me if they look alike. I know the boots from Wade in episode 6 look a little dirty and rusty, or a little dirty and dusty, and obviously, yeah, they're in the woods. Look at where they're at, the burnt forest, so maybe he did clean them off some, but it's the belly that throws me off. This guy in episode 15 has a bigger belly. He looks like an older gentleman. In episode 6, the guy didn't have a belly. Wade could actually be Stephen Ogg's character right here in the season finale. Doesn't really sound like him, I don't think, but it could be, and I could just be getting it wrong. But I do not believe Wade is the guy that's following Carol. I could be wrong there, but it just feels like, it looks like the guy has a bigger belly than Wade does in episode 6. Moving right on to Carl. Yes, this is an Easter egg with Negan's bat on the handle. I don't know if this is Negan's gun or maybe one of his soldiers who just loves the idea of his bat. We already seen some of his soldiers hung up pictures, Polaroids, of what Negan does to people, so maybe there are some that just absolutely love Negan and the way he rules, you know what I mean? Another thing, I do make fun of the towers by the gate. Yes, I do believe they could have put something up, something for Sasha to stand behind just in case there's someone who jumps out of a bush and takes a shot at her. But we can see that this is a work in progress. That's because we can see another half-built tower down the way. We also see extra guns in front where Sasha is, and we see cans with guns all prepped below Sasha and over by the halfway built, or it looks halfway built, but we also see later on that Maggie and Michonne and Glenn are working on the guard tower and they're helping stock it, so maybe it is partially built, or maybe it is fully built and it just looks partially built. Speaking of Glenn and Maggie, they show a shower scene, and a lot of people are talking about foreshadowing of Maggie putting shampoo on Glenn's head. Now, I think this is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, you can call it foreshadowing, but it has to be something. Guys, foreshadowing needs multiple elements. It needs something deep. Maggie is just putting shampoo on his damn head. Yes, maybe the writers went there, but in order for it to be foreshadowing, it needs to be something like, I don't know, they had a bottle of shampoo that was like a baseball bat and a ball, and it was like baseball shampoo or something, and it fell off the cabinet in the shower and knocked knocked them on the head or bopped him on the head and fell down. Shit like that is foreshadowing, but this is her simply just shampooing his head. I could be totally wrong here, but I think that's a stretch. Anyway, we see bruises on Maggie in the shower. We don't see enough, but we see some. Hey now, watch it. No, I do not believe those bruises are causing a walker inside her to eat her from the inside out. I know a lot of people are asking me that, and we have to understand she's, not even 2 months yet, and I looked it up, and yeah, what's inside her is a little squishy, see-through, like, transparent being. It's not like a fully developed baby with teeth and anything like that. So there's nothing really inside her that can actually eat its way out, in my opinion, at that young of an age. Again, she's only like 2 months along. Another thing, too, is the pains. A lot of people are saying is going to be something where she dies or there's a walker in her. The pains, in my opinion, are just part of what gets Maggie and Glenn to the hilltop, if Glenn survives, because Denise is gone. Maggie has pains. She can't just go see Denise. Maggie has these pains, and she's going to have to go to the hilltop if she wants to make sure if the baby's okay. Now, I said if Glenn makes it, and I'm starting to doubt if he will, because they're really, really playing with us now, because when Glenn leaves, Maggie has this look at the gates, and they linger on this for a moment. It's one of those looks that says, hey, Maggie might not be at the lineup, and Glenn might get his head beat in, because that look is just too damn creepy, but they do it all the time to us. They are really playing with our emotions when it comes to Glenn and Maggie, and especially since Glenn, when he's out there, he says a really creepy line as well, where he tells Daryl, it's gonna go wrong out here, and it does. So Daryl should have listened. A lot of fans are questioning, should they have left? Should Carol have left? Should Glenn, Michonne, and Rosita have left? Should Daryl have left? Should Rick and Morgan have left? Now here's the thing, a lot of them weren't totally convinced there's a lot of saviors out there. I mean, they started realizing it. They knew that Dwight and them were out there. They knew there was a little group out there, but Rick does confirm. He's like, well, there's more out there than we thought. And Morgan was like, well, you guys started something. I mean, Rick's confidence alone in bed should tell us something. When he's in bed with Michonne and Michonne gets up, he says, the world is ours and we know how to take it. And he says, if anyone comes here, we'll just fight or whatever. Now, this confidence, we're going to talk about this during the break from season 6 to 7, but this plays a big part in the story because Rick's confidence is up to here. It's a 10. Negan comes in and it shatters his world. Rick now has to just say, you know what, I was way overconfident and I thought we were always well equipped. We always had the upper hand. And then Rick really puts things into perspective. More training, more sneaking around, more like gathering intel, and then they attack. So there's a really awesome flow here with the story. If an overconfident Rick, Negan really comes up and destroys his confidence, and Rick not only has to rebuild that, but rebuild everything just to attack and get out from under Negan's thumb. All the Rick and Morgan in this episode, I absolutely loved. From the previous Afterthoughts from episode 14, you guys now know I have a newfound love for Morgan's story. Just how they're crafting it from season 3 to 5 to 6, I absolutely love it. Especially the lines that they say back and forth. Later we see him take a shot at a mystery man. We do talk about the mystery man, so click on this eye at the end of the video for a drop down list. I'll try to put the link there. If not, just follow my video links and you'll find the mystery man from the kingdom. Rick just takes a shot at him. Now that was just ridiculous. That guy, I know the evidence with the spear and everything could point that he's a savior or something, but he could be from somewhere totally different. And Jesus did tell him your world's about to get a lot bigger. So just because they're trading spears with the saviors doesn't mean they're not trading spears with someone else. So Morgan was in the right to stop him. Is something going to happen where Morgan's not there to stop Rick and Rick goes too far? Because Rick's reply when Morgan says, just the wrong that hasn't pulled you down, epic line by the way, but Rick's reply makes me wonder, will something happen to Rick where he will go too far or he does do some wrong that does start to pull him down? That's an interesting thing. I hope they really play with that because I would love to see something come around like that. Let's talk about hitting walkers. This is kind of ridiculous. Morgan hits a walker and it kills them. I guess this answers our questions when we had what do they do when they're batting everyone's heads in Terminus? They turn into walkers. Well, I guess if Morgan's gonna hit a walker, and he does when they get to where Carol killed all those saviors, Morgan just cracks a walker in the head and it kills it. That kind of contradicts some shit that happened with the Walkers previously, and I don't really get it, nor do I like it. I think something needs to crack that and actually destroy a part of the brain on the inside, whether it's the pole or stabbing it or something. Just kind of disagree with that. Let's go to something I like. I do love how they discussed season 4, and Morgan asks what Rick would do if Carol burnt people nowadays, and he's like, I thank her for it. I should have done it myself. And I love this because it shows that Rick sees a different perspective of things. You got to do what you got to do to help your people, to keep them safe. And, you know, all emotions aside, now that we can look back in retrospect, that was a dangerous situation. And they were going to die no matter what. They didn't have the medicine. They couldn't help them like they could help Glenn and everything like that. They were dead men walking, and they needed to be put down, and Carol did it. Rick does talk about Carol coming back, though, and Morgan came back. The wolf came back, and I think a lot of people are looking at this wrong. Yes, Carol did come back. Morgan did come back, and his comeback story is awesome. I love it now, especially now. And the wolf, slightly forced, a little rushed. Yes, he did come back. And what I mean by people looking at it wrong is the fact that they say the wolf wouldn't have to save Denise if he didn't take Denise. Well, I'm not sure if that's what Morgan was talking about when Morgan says that he saved Denise in that. Because if you look at it, Denise wouldn't be at the prison. So where would she have been? And I feel like that's what Morgan's getting at. Where would Denise have been? If Morgan didn't save the wolf, we don't know where Denise would have been. We don't know where she would have got trapped or caught. We don't know what she would have been doing if Morgan just killed the wolf and Morgan didn't need Denise to come to where the wolf was. Essentially, Morgan keeping the wolf alive saved Denise's life in the way we can see it, because that's the only way it went down. What if Morgan killed the wolf and Denise was just walking around, got caught somehow, and died? Nobody would be there to save Carl. And I think just that idea alone is what hit Rick, because he's got that look like, damn, you just dropped some heavy shit on me, you know? And Rick wasn't even really mad, and then even later he kind of, which makes me a little worried, and Rick is like, you're coming back. And if you look, Rick is not asking him if he's coming back. Rick is telling him, you're coming back, Morgan. And it has me worried for Morgan, especially once they drop the protein bar line, which, oh man, I love this. I love that they did it, but it made me nervous because this is like they're bookending it, because in season 6 episode 1, they did the protein bar where Morgan's like, did you see a protein bar? And Michonne's like, nope, didn't take it, didn't see it. And then Rick throws her under the bus, but still, he's like, Michonne did steal your last protein bar. And I love how they have that interaction, but again, it makes me nervous for what they're going to do with Morgan. We're not holding on to that anymore. It's out there. It was a nice scene. It was touching. Watching those two characters, even though Rick didn't have a smile, Morgan had a smile, it has me nervous. What does have me kind of feeling good is the fact that they might be using Morgan and Carol to introduce the kingdom in a way, or a new community, or to do something with their story. So maybe Morgan's safe. I'm really looking forward to see what story Morgan has in season 7, so I'm really hoping he pulls through. Speaking of two characters pulling through and having good interactions, we've seen a little bit with Abe and Rick in this episode, and I liked it, but it left me wanting more. Just left me wanting more. I do want to see more and more and more, especially during All Out War. I want more between Abraham and Rick. Absolutely. Move right over to that ending. Holy shit, that ending was perfect. People are saying it's cheap, and it's like, oh, they think they think they can fool us and fake us out that he's dead. But did they? I mean, really? I see this everywhere where people's complaining that it's another fake out death, and I don't think that at all. Like, I don't see that at all. If you go back and rewatch it, they're not faking anything. This is not like Glenn's fake out death. They clearly show Dwight behind Daryl. Daryl turns. Dwight shoots Daryl. Blood and a wound in his shoulder shoot out of his shoulder. It's clear as day. And then it goes on to the screen. So we know he just got clipped. He was not shot in the head. He was not killed. He was not murdered. And then on top of that, they have Dwight saying, you'll be alright, or you'll be okay. I don't think there's evidence to say they're trying to trick us that Daryl got killed at all. So everyone complaining about that, I don't agree with it. I think it was a perfect ending. Characters can get hurt really bad. We don't need it either they live or they die. They can get hurt, bad. And this was an awesome way to end this. And like I said, I did a video, again, click this eye, 3 reasons why the writers had Daryl getting shot. I still strongly stand behind those 3 reasons. I think like 50,000 people watched it by now, and I'm getting a lot of positive comments on that. Not only that, but Norman Reedus did an interview, and he did confirm 1 out of the 3 reasons that the writers had that in there is because Dwight knew if Daryl was turning around, it was not to talk. It was not to give up. If Daryl was turning around, which he was, as Dwight didn't do shit. As soon as Daryl turns around, Dwight's like, pop. And that's because he knew if he was turning around, you know, they were going to fight or something bad was going to happen. It was not to give up. And that's one of the reasons I go into more detail, and I read that interview just this morning, which means they knew what they were doing in crafting that. And Norman Reedus does say you can't trust anything Dwight says, so they're kind of leaving a little mystery in there for when Dwight says, oh, you'll be okay, because Norman Reedus, the actor, is telling us not to trust Dwight. You can't trust anything he's saying. But I'm going to ask you guys to do one thing now as Walking Dead fans. Go back and rewatch episode 6. Now, a lot of you know that I made a video back in season 5 where I asked, as a fan, I was asking you guys for your opinions on an idea I had. And the idea was to enter in, and it's funny because back then I said Daryl or Glenn, and then I used Glenn as an example, only because Glenn was a supply runner, and it seemed like he would more than likely be out on a supply run, and he would run into Dwight. But I said, what would you guys think if Glenn ran into Dwight? I'm only bringing up Glenn because now it's funny how Glenn is out there tied up with Michonne and Daryl and everything. But yeah, a long time ago, over a year now, definitely I asked about that because I love the idea. Well, even though I do think that episode 6, it's still okay, but I found it just a little underwhelming. If you go back and rewatch that, there is just something so damn cool about rewatching, especially Dwight's character in episode 6, and then coming now and watching him at the end of 14 and then all the way through in 15. There's just something so damn cool about that. So I'm asking you as Walking Dead fans, go back and rewatch episode 6. Do yourself a favor. Then watch him again in 14 and 15. There's just something so cool about that. Come back here when you're done and let me know what you think. Do you spot some differences or a slight change in his character? And I'm not talking about the easy stuff like, oh, he's killing. There's a difference in those characters. There's a slight, subtle difference in the way the actor is playing Dwight pre-burn face and Dwight post-burn face, and I love it. So go back and do yourself a favor and check that out. Leave all your thoughts and opinions down in that comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn. Subscribe now.